Today, I'm in conversation with Daychitta, who has a rare condition known as pure autonomic failure, or PAF. Now, we hope that this series of conversations will be of use to a range of listeners, including those with a degenerative neurological condition themselves, as well as those who care for somebody who has, and how we can support order members with a health condition when we are on retreat with them, either as retreatants or retreat leaders. So, a very warm welcome, Daychitta. I'm delighted to be speaking with you today. Really delighted. So, I'm just going to ask you a series of questions, and then if you respond, okay?
Yep, that's fine.
So,
yeah.
Now, probably many people listening to this don't know what PF is. I know it's a rare condition, but do you want to say a bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the label, the name of it is sort of descriptive. It's an autonomic failure, so it's failure of all the automatic functions of the body. I don't know why it's called pure. Yeah. So it's a particular constellation of failure of the automatic system. It's partly to do with the central nervous system, but not entirely. So it doesn't affect my breathing or certain things like that. But it affects the systems of the body that are controlled by the nerves that come down the spine. They're called the peripheral nerves. So they go into the skin, the heart, the bladder, the bowels, and various other sort of functions, nerves that control those functions. And for me, the major symptom that got me diagnosed was it was affecting my blood pressure control, which doesn't sound that much, but actually what happens with the blood pressure is whenever I stand or eat or walk or do anything active, the blood pressure drops very, very low. And when I'm sitting and lying down, it goes up very, very high. So it's up and down very chaotically, which causes damage to the heart and the blood vessels, but also causes lack of oxygen being able to be pumped around the body. So it affects the eyes and the brain, and it can damage the brain cells and the heart and all the muscles. So you get a lot of, I get a lot of quite severe symptoms affecting all those systems, body, plus bladder and bowel failing and lack of sweating. And so it's a sort of global thing. So yeah, it's there all the time, and the only thing that can do for me really is to give me drugs to raise the blood pressure during the day so that I can function, and they last about 2 or 3 hours before I can take some more, and to give me drugs at night to lower the blood pressure to stop me getting stroke or heart attack. So you know, it's a sort of fine line, really. So, yeah.
Goodness me, that's.
And it can turn, with some people, it can turn into Parkinson's disease or something like motor neuron disease or a type of dementia. So these are things that might happen, or a heart attack or stroke. So there you go.
Goodness me, yeah. Well, there's a couple of questions which arise from that for me. It's like, well, how first of all, how does that impact your Dharma life? You know, this is, you know, because there's so much uncertainty in what I just said. You don't know if this is going to happen, that's going to happen, or this or that.
I don't know how I feel one day to the next, or 1 hour to the next. So well, I mean, it's interesting over the years, you know, I haven't been able to go on retreats or stay overnight because, you know, I needed sort of particular sleeping arrangements and diets and things to make me able to function. And so I spend quite a lot of time reflecting. I mean, the most recent retreats I've been on after a break of about 10, 15 years since I've been diagnosed, really, were a couple of retreats run by Vasantra on at Adhisthana, and particularly a retreat where he was teaching the Tonglen practice, and I found that really fantastic. In a way, it's so simple, you know. You just, I think my practice has become much more simple because I'm not really attracted to a lot of the sort of visualization practices, particularly now. And for me, it's something to do with reflecting on impermanence, the lakshanas, and the foresights is how it works for me. And yeah, self and other, and how that interacts, and how one responds to what you're experiencing, and how you don't actually know anything. You know, years ago, actually, I went on a retreat that Subhuti was leading. He was introducing us to a Yogacara practice, and that really stuck with me, and that's what I've been doing for about 20 years myself. And it's very simple. And I've said this to other people, and they look at me like I'm totally mad. I think, you know, they don't quite get what I'm saying, but it has meaning for me. And it's, the phrase is perceiving subject meets perceived object, and perceiving subject immediately implies a process to me, so nothing fixed, and nothing that you can sort of really grab hold of. And perceived object, that to me is just a sort of, it's a perception, so you don't actually know what's behind there. It reminds me something of early teachings that I came across of the Mahabhutis, that you just don't know, but all you've got are what you're, all you have is your experience, and what you sort of what sense you can make of that. And sometimes the experience is painful and it's suffering. And the Tonglen practice then, you know, made me feel less like it was me only suffering. And you know, I was surrounded, there was a sense of solidarity, because it was just part of life, really. And a connection to something much bigger and more expansive and benign, I suppose. Yeah, so that's been my way in, and the two together, that sense of reflection of impermanence and insubstantiality, and a sort of more metaphor, heart connection with one's experience that comes through the Tonglen, that I explored much more on Vasantra's retreat. That's it, actually. And in some ways, it just seems much more simple. You just, with what is happening from moment to moment, and you don't hang on to it and identify with it, hopefully. You know, you loosen that sense of identification and specialness, I suppose.
And it sounds like your condition has informed your practice quite substantially in that respect.
Yeah, because I mean, in a way, you know, it's a mirror, a constant mirror for that, a reminder. And sometimes it really drives me mad, and I get really pissed off about it, basically. But in other ways, you know, it's what it is, and it's going to happen to everybody at some point. Every living thing. So what can you do but just try and be kind, and to yourself and to others, you know. That's the theory, anyway.
So in terms of do you feel sometimes that you need to ask for help? Are there enough supports in your life, or from the
well,
local
I don't, because I'm sort of probably stupidly over responsible, and you know, and I think, you know, my background's made me feel very self-sufficient, I suppose. And and that's hard to let go of. And also because of, you know, certain sort of negative conditioning in relation to the movement, you know, so I feel like, you know, there's a certain fractured trust that I have in especially in institutions of the movement, and the way things can get, people can take stuff up and run with them, and sometimes it's not that at all helpful to me, I don't think. But sorry, what was I saying?
About
asking for
support,
help,
and from the Sangha and friends.
Yeah, I find it difficult for all those reasons.
Yeah.
But I do have good friends, and here in where I'm living in Cambridge now, and my partner, long-standing partner, is very kind and helpful. So yeah, I do. It is something that I need to maybe open up more and ask for help more, because I was advised by one of my consultants that I need to make future plans now, and I will have to have carers and stuff. And I, you know, I'm not really, in spite of my lofty theoretical insights, you know, I'm resisting that next step, really.
Yeah. Well, there is a local care network in Cambridge, so maybe that can that can be of assistance to you as well. So thank you, Daychitta. I just want to ask one last question about retreat. You've mentioned going on retreats. So when you are on retreat, and presumably that's still an aspiration for you, you still want to go on retreats. I was just wondering what conditions support you.
Right.
What is helpful for others to bear in mind, both retreatants and retreat leaders, to support you on retreats?
Yeah. I mean, those retreats I went on at Astana, there was a couple of years ago now, I think. You know, most retreat centres, and quite understandably, you know, they're set up for people who are, you know, hale and hearty by and large, you know, and if somebody has a bit of difficulty getting upstairs, I get a bit of help. But people like myself who have got more sort of global and sometimes quite, well, sometimes they're quite hidden, you know. I take the drugs and people probably don't know what I'm feeling, and I can get from A to B, but there's something about having an openness to facilitating, rather than, you know, I've often felt like I've been a nuisance if I've asked for a diet or special diet, or it's quite hard work organizing it all myself on top of having the illness. And so I could perhaps get a carer, but I don't have that set up. And if I go on an order retreat, well, there have to be an order, you know. So it's something, it would be good if it was a bit more sort of in consciousness of people on the retreats and people running the retreats. Now, a lot of the buildings aren't really set up for disabilities. I mean, they are to some extent, but so I was thinking that, you know, on the work rota, I know that the person you were interviewing, the chap in Manchester, he was saying he felt quite isolated when he was lying in his room and things like that. And I just thought, well, if as well as on the work rota there were people doing the washing up and so on, that there could be some people signing up to help the disabled person, or you know, maybe the 3 disabled people on the retreat, so there'll be 3 helpers signed up per day. That they could make sure that that person got what they needed. They could negotiate for them in terms of diets. Special diets are real problems on retreat. And I do have a lot of sympathy for the cooks and so on, because everybody seems to want something different. But sometimes it's sort of life-threatening if you can't get what you want, and you're not just being picky. And it would be good if there was some sort of way that the disabled person didn't have to do all the negotiation and deal with all the you know, certain amount of resistances and things like that. So I don't know if that would work.
Well, it's the 3 sites writ large, isn't it? And also I think that's a really good practical suggestion. Maybe that's something which can be taken on.
Yeah, and if it was taken off, you know, then maybe there'd be a group of disabled people who could input into what would be helpful. You know, be a bit of meetings together about it.
Well, I think that's something which I'd like to discuss further with you. Not here now, but another time, and then maybe start a dialogue with retreat centres.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to do that, because I used to be an acupuncturist, so I'm sort of used to seeing things from both sides of the divide, if you like. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I mean, there's obviously this we could talk for at least an hour. Yeah. But I hopefully that will give our listeners an essence of the challenges you're facing, and also I found it really inspirational. You know, you talking about, well, you have this condition, you have to live moment to moment, and that your practice is very much based upon not attaching to things and just letting things flow, because that's how you have to live. So thank you very much.
Just to add one thing, it was just that creative activity is really important, because with creative stuff, you know, and I've now become an artist, you know, so much to my surprise, you know, in the last few years. That again is another process where you don't really know what's going to happen. You know, you try and put stuff in, but you know, there's a sort of I can't think of the word. My brain goes sometimes, but you know, you don't always know what's going to happen, and that's part of the whole process and the excitement of it in a way. And more positive than through illness, I must say. But because
you are a very talented glass. You work with glass. I've seen some of your work, some of your Tasmanian landscapes are really quite evocative. So that's a really interesting angle of on creativity, and also bring it together with how you have to live with your condition.
It's the same thing, really. In a way.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Daychitta.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best, and we will carry on our discussion about.
Yes, very nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you, Di.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.